researchers conducted for NPR. And pardon us, it's our reporter, Rob Stein.
The researchers find that the number of states that are doing enough coronavirus testing to keep the virus under control has increased from 9 to 18 plus Washington, D.C. over the last couple of months. But 32 states still are not doing enough testing to keep their outbreaks from surging out of control. And according to the analysis conducted by Harvard for NPR, only 4 states, Vermont, Hawaii, Alaska, and Montana, are doing enough testing to actually suppress the virus, which is what's really needed for life to begin to return to some level of normalcy. Rob Stein, NPR News.
Congressional Democrats and Republicans are demanding answers following reports that Russia paid Taliban-affiliated militants to kill U.S. troops in Afghanistan. NPR's Windsor Johnston reports President Trump has said he was not briefed on the matter and insists that the intelligence on the bounties was not credible.
The top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, is blasting Trump for not assuring the public that he will get to the bottom of whether Russians are putting bounties on the heads of American troops.
I do not understand why the president isn't saying this to the American people right now and is relying on, I don't know, I haven't heard, I haven't been briefed. That's just not excusable.
The ranking Republican on the House Armed Services Committee, Mac Thornberry, says Congress needs to know more.
Every level of government needs to gather more information to understand the situation better.
National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien says the allegations in recent reports have not been verified or substantiated by the intelligence community. Windsor Johnston, NPR News, Washington.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 33 points since the open at 25,561. This is NPR.
Good afternoon. I'm Dave Heller, WHYY News. It's 1:04. Next Tuesday's primary election in New Jersey could be the heaviest vote-by-mail contest in the state's history. WHYY's Joe Hernandez reports that means results might not come back for days or even weeks.
And unaffiliated voters can still apply for them. The shift to a majority mail-in election comes amid the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, but it means election officials will have to sift through thousands or even millions of paper ballots. Jesse Burns is the executive director of the League of Women Voters of New Jersey.
Immediate results aren't necessary. I think what's necessary is making sure that everybody has the ability to cast a ballot safely and that the integrity of our elections are maintained.
Voters can still cast their ballots in person if they want to. At least one polling place will be open in every city and town across the state. From the New Jersey desk, Joe Hernandez, WHYY News.
Pennsylvania is dropping its 6-bottle limit for online liquor sales. The Liquor Control Board says the caps were put in place to prevent the website from crashing. Elizabeth Brassel of the Control Board says that problem has been solved, and they've expanded consumer options to include in-store purchases.
with the impression that the president had not been briefed on such a serious matter, which Boyer called very, very tragic. The president called this received led me to believe it is a hoax. There may be different judgments as to the credibility, but there was no assertion that the information we had was a hoax. NPR saying that I was discarded down the penny holder, as much critical I was paid for here.
They're racist.
And going through this situation,
Into the Democratic aides. Robert O'Brien and Director of National Intelligence. Officials, for example, CIA Director Gina Haspel, that's one official they really want to hear from, and others who'd be familiar with these reports. And they also said they didn't learn anything they didn't know already. So this was a comment by Representative L.A. Engel of New York. He's the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. And so they're concerned that they didn't get any new information today. In all, nearly a dozen members joined the Majority Leader Standing Order to take in this briefing, and among them was Adam Schiff, chairman of the Intelligence Committee. He said he still has any questions and remains highly concerned the administration hasn't done more already to respond to these reports. For example, he doesn't understand why President Trump hasn't taken to the American public and made clear, I'm aware of these reports, I'm going to get to the bottom of it.
Well, Republicans were briefed yesterday. Let's hear this from Texas Republican Michael McCall, who described what he heard in the briefing yesterday to NPR.
There's a huge volume of intelligence that comes through. They obviously choose which to brief them on, and they want it to be credible when they brief evidence. So at least that's what they told us, you know. And so, you know, did the president kind of wake up and say, gee, I wish I'd known about that? I don't know.
Claudia, are Republicans as alarmed as Democrats, or do you just expect them to follow the president, who's essentially saying his hands are clean, he didn't get briefed?
I'm seeing a real split with Republicans. Some are that alarmed, some are demanding additional details, but some are following the president's lead here. For example, some of these members, including McCall, who attended this White House briefing yesterday, afterwards echoed the White House's narrative that the intelligence community is conflicted on what actually happened, and that they didn't think that Trump needed to be briefed at that time. At the same time, they're calling for a response if the intelligence community can further prove out these allegations. For example, I spoke with Representative Adam Kinzinger of Illinois. He's a combat veteran, and he said as members get more answers, they'll know what the response needs to be. So we're hearing from plenty of Republicans who say the response needs to happen, perhaps it needs to be swift in some cases, and they want to move on to this next stage, depending on what details come out further. Some are already calling for sanctions, for example.
Right, so I was just going to ask you if you're referring to a response from the president, or if you're referring to the United States response to Russia for, you know, allegedly putting a bounty on U.S. troops.
Yeah, so we're hearing a lot from Republicans in particular who are focusing on the response from the United States to Russia. For example, they are raising this idea of calling for sanctions. And Adam Schiff, as I mentioned earlier, he's calling for questions to be raised about whether Russia can join the G7, for example. Plans such as this that have been raised before by President Trump need to hit pause, and they need to be reassessed in light of these new details. So we're seeing a variety of proposals from both Democrats and Republicans on what these next steps should be. But we imagine as we get more details, as they get more details, they'll have a better picture of what that might look like.
And I do want to ask you about another detail we're learning about today. The New York Times is reporting that, in fact, the intelligence was written in the president's daily briefing. This was back in late February. What's the White House saying about that?
So in terms of the White House, they are sticking to this line of defense, saying the president personally wasn't briefed. Despite these reports, perhaps this was in a briefing in 2019, as we're hearing. But the White House continues to stand by this defense and say the president personally was not briefed.
Well, it's all out there now, and so it'll be interesting to see what's next, what the response will be, as we've talked about, but also what kind of hearings we might encounter on Capitol Hill. Do you expect to get more out of this?
It seems that momentum is building towards some potential hearings, but that is going to take some agreement between Republicans and Democrats on what those may look like. We may see a better opportunity for that on the House side, where Democrats are leading the charge to take a closer look at this, and we'll see if Republicans, since they're split on this issue, whether they can come to an agreement on what they want to do when it comes to these hearings.
NPR congressional correspondent Claudia Griselles on a very important story. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having me. And you're listening to Here and Now on WHYY. Good afternoon. I'm Katie Culinary here with Tracy Matisak, proudly asking for your support for this public radio station, for this and all the other programs that we know you rely on. Call us 1-888-345-9499 or go online to whyy.org/radio. And you know, there couldn't be a better time to give to WHYY. This is the last day of our fiscal year. It's June 30th, so it's a time when we're taking stock. We're looking at, you know, what do we have to go into the next year strong so that we can continue to serve you, because you know, we've pivoted this newsroom as NPR has pivoted and all the other programs have pivoted to serve you and get you the best information during not only a pandemic but a major social movement going on to fight racism in this country. And we want to be able to continue to cover those stories on the local and the national and the international level for you. So again, call us 1-888-345-9499 or go to whyy.org/radio.
And Katie, you mentioned taking stock, and one thing that helps us enormously to take stock is when we've got sustaining members, and that simply means that you are giving monthly to WHYY. You decide how much. For $5 a month or more, you can become a sustaining member, and all that means is that is either billed to your credit card or you can have it taken from your bank account until you decide to make an adjustment. It really helps us to plan because we know what we're working with, and for you, it's one and done. I think it works wonderfully. Personally, I am a member and as a sustainer, and it works really well because you make one decision and you don't have to think about it anymore. But you also have the satisfaction of knowing that you are supporting public radio. And speaking of supporting public radio, we are so grateful to Carol Hosker-Varno and to the 4,000 listeners who stepped up to her challenge. She promised us a check for $75,000 if 4,000 people would pledge, if we would get 4,000 pledges by the end of the month, and we beat that goal by a day, Katie, so we're so excited about that. So gratified, but of course the work continues, and the stronger we are, the more fully funded we are, the more programs we can offer our listeners. 888-345-9499 or whyy.org/radio.
And here's another fact that really puts into perspective why membership is so critical from our listeners. Close to 50% of WHYY's revenue comes from listeners just like you. We want to keep it that way, and if anything, really grow that number, because that's what makes public radio, and that's what makes us accountable to you. We hear from listeners who are members a lot. We encounter people in the community who, you know, the first thing that they'll say to one of our reporters when they see the mic flag is, "Oh, I'm a member." My favorite was the person who ran up to me to say that WHYY was in her will. We're not necessarily asking you to go that far, but hey, if you're thinking that way, we would welcome that as well. Exactly. You know, whatever you think is the best way for you to support the station. But, you know, the point is, you know, we're in your communities, we see you, and we want you to be seen by us, because that's what makes for a stronger news service. And, local radio station. It's the backbone of community supporters. That's you. And we're asking you to call us now. 1-888-345-9499. whyy.org/radio. It really takes just a couple of minutes. I'm also a sustaining member of the station, as is Tracy. It takes just a couple of minutes to become a member, but it really makes a big difference when you make that gift.
And we should mention that just because we made that goal yesterday of 4,000 pledges of any amount, we continue to, remind our listeners how important it is to invest in public radio. And we have a new goal today. It's for 500 pledges by the end of the day. And the goal for this particular hour is 20 pledges. So that means that we need to hear from 20 people before the hour is up to help us get to that larger goal of 500 pledges for the day, and really for the end of this campaign. We've got 7 in so far, so that means we need to hear from 13 people this hour, and I am confident
that we can do that, but we like to break up these larger goals into smaller pieces. And if you need a little bit of incentive, well, I mentioned earlier that for $5 a month or more, you become a sustaining member of WHYY. You receive your member card, and that entitles you to discounts all around the Delaware Valley. You can request a subscription to Wine Spectator magazine, which is what all the fashionable coffee tables are wearing this